Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to have last year's winner of the Impact Award with us. Here we have Miss Amelie Kaleha. She is here with us from Malta. So um, please give her a very warm welcome. She's going to talk a little bit about her project, the process into going into creating that piece, and then also what it was really like to give us a pitch. And then afterwards, she'll take a few questions. And then we'll move on to the rest of our presentation, which will cover the prototype and pitching process as well. So please, everyone, Miss Amelie, and she's going to give us a little bit about herself. So just kind of, briefly, what grade you're in, where you're at, and then launch into what you've got.
Hi, I'm Amelie. I'm 18 years old, nearly. I'm in my final year before entering university here in Malta, which it's post-secondary education. Because our education systems are kind of a bit different and it's a bit complicated to explain. And yes, I had the privilege of participating in the hackathon last year, and I won. I still can't believe it. So basically, I'm going to share a PowerPoint. As some of you know, maybe don't, it's okay. I did my pitch on the combating the health issues here in Malta because Malta ranked top in Europe for problematic gaming, social media use, and childhood obesity. And the 15-year-old Maltese girls have reached above average for regular e-cigarette and cannabis use. And to me, these aren't just numbers. These are things I see in my day-to-day. People my age and younger, these are 15-year-olds we're talking about here at least. Um, you see them in your day-to-day. It's issues that you come across. And the judges want this. The judges can tell when you're passionate about the subject. And being passionate about what you're talking about is what drives a compelling opening. It's what gets you far, and which can actually lead you to create a working system because you know how these people act, you know what interests them, and you know the ideal situation in which this situation can be improved. So, in my case, at least, when it came to this, apart from how can we solve this issue, the other question I had to keep in mind is how do I make this interesting for people my age and younger? And how do I make this seem more attractive than simply just being glued to a screen or being, you know, just outside vaping or smoking weed, you know? So, and also, how do I make this affordable for everyone so everyone can access it and we can actually solve this issue? So basically, what I proposed were free after school activity vouchers, from which teens could choose from a variety of activities. So it's not just the same thing over and over. It's each teen choosing something that they actually enjoy when it comes to physical activity, leaving less time for boredom, kind of. So keeping them active, keeping them entertained, and making this in a way mandatory, in inverted commas, because of the creation of the after school activities diploma, which is of value to later on schools and employers. Um, so with this in mind, when it comes to at least always keep in mind the funding, where is the money coming from, and how will it affect the participants? So with this in mind, reducing the cost, making them free ultimately makes it accessible for everyone in every sphere of life. Any teen can participate in this, and issuing the diploma will bring more teens to participate in this project. So how do I say this? The this will become effective because it's affecting as many teens as possible. And how do I know this will work apart from just observing how people behave in their day to day? Because this has actually been done. So, taking in mind, for example, Iceland, they created a form of organized sports participation, which actually helped to counter substance use, counter addictions substantially. So it's this idea has definitely worked somewhere. Um, and also the judges, apart from the passion, apart from um, uh, you make the judges alert on what your project is about. The judges also respect nuance. You have to show that correlation does not equal causation. Yes, something I forgot to mention, apart from the Iceland model, a study at UCLA has also shown that after school physical programs reduce BMI percentile. So, what I mentioned before, the childhood obesity aspect is also countered. And of course, when presenting, uh, show show your charts, show your statistics, show your research, but do this strategically. So it's a 3-minute pitch. It's short. You don't have much time to elaborate. So focus on what you want to emphasize. If there's a graph, mark the column which you are directly referring to, for instance. Now, in making the pitch, when I sat down, got the problem, and said, okay, how am I going to do this? So first, um, I chose the problem, I derived the problem from my own personal experience with observing my peers and other people in my day to day. So the more personal the issue is, the more understanding you have of it, the more memorable your pitch will be, and the more effective your solution should be as well. So that's where the issue comes in. Now, when it comes to the solution, walk through it in the simplest method that you can possibly go through it, in the most understandable method, in which you can make the judges understand in the shortest period of time possible. Um, and always provide evidence. In my case, the Iceland model was my strongest card. It was my best card. So I led with it. It's my best piece of evidence showing results over a span of 15 years. And now the credit and critiques. It's true we haven't actually done this pilot locally. We haven't piloted it yet, but I gathered what I could. I made predictions according to existing data. So for most of you, that's how it's going to probably be. You wouldn't have time to pilot it. So be honest with the judges about this. But also when it comes to predictions, again, evidence is key. And be prepared for the judges' questions. Um, Always prepare for the worst. So it's better to be over prepared on the subject than to be under prepared because you never know what the judges may ask. So basically, some pros and errors. Basically, again, what I said, emphasize what you need to emphasize. Make the slides bold and visual. right? So the judges can grasp your concept in the least time possible. You have 3 minutes. You can't really elaborate much in 3 minutes. Practice your script. Know what you're saying. Um, know how to explain it well. So it's not just like memorizing lines and that's it. You have to understand what you're saying as well. Um, use the first 90 seconds at least, at most actually, 90 seconds to um, base your context. Explain the problem. Why did you choose the problem? Why, why are you choosing the problem now? What solution are you going to propose? Show visual evidence. Again, evidence is key. Show your graphs, show your pie charts, explain your studies. And then at the end, after explaining your solution, it's best to end with, like a clear, hopeful vision, with encouragement, like this is very likely to work. Don't just end it with like, yeah, okay, child obesity is a problem, of course. Yeah, but when it comes to what I would do and what I would encourage you to do as well is firstly start to pilot earlier. See if this will actually work. Now, for example, in my case, I could have tested this out on a small youth club, for instance, to see whether the impact would have been strengthened. I would have gotten feedback from all my peers, people my age, on whether they feel that this would work as well. Um, I know that it was kind of ideal that I focused on something that affects my age group because kind of I'm a member of that age group. I'm able to understand what's going on. But still, I'm not the only teenager. Not all teenagers are like me. So peer review if possible. And also add strong quotes that are not academic sources. Like, for example, comments that may have been received as you were piloting, the feedback after the pilot session was done. Was it good? Was it bad? Could it use improvements? Use a quote that reflects this, reflects the effect that this project would possibly have. And Professor Dr. Zhu will probably emphasize on this in her sessions, the create criteria. Basically, use this. It's again, it's not just like criteria, it's not just a checklist that you have to fill out. It's actually there to help you form your pitch. So be creative. Um, the judges will remember the idea that surprises them, that takes routes that they would not expect to have been taken. For example, implementing vouchers using the tobacco tax. They weren't really expecting that. Research oriented. As I kept saying and will keep saying, evidence is super important. Provide evidence. Every single claim of yours has to be backed up by a source. For example, I use the Health Behavior of School Children 2022 survey. I use the Iceland study. I use the UCLA trial. Everything I said was backed up by at least one source. Thirdly, be entrepreneurial. So find your stakeholders. Think about funding. Nothing in this world is free, unfortunately. So think about who can implement this, who has enough power to implement this particular structure. I chose the children's councils, I chose activity providers, schools to encourage this, governments to implement this. and even jobs up to a certain point if the certificate is, it will gain favor when it comes to choosing schools or getting jobs. Make it accessible. It's important that, to solve a problem, this has to be accessible to as many people as possible. So in my case, I made it free at the point of use. So again, everyone from every sphere of life has access to the sports activities, using the vouchers. So this problem, the problem of like gaming addictions, child obesity, and other addictions is combated as much as possible. Transformative. This has to show the change. For example, the Iceland study, the change, it was done over 15 years and the change was tangible. Kind of, these aren't things that just can happen in one session. One session is never enough. So the solution has to obviously be done over a period of time. And then, as a conclusion, was it effective or not? In my case, I didn't do a pilot study. So I still required evaluation for my solution. I proposed measuring like participation rates, BMI, substance use to show the transformation, linking back to the previous point, to show the changes that were actually occurring and that this was actually effective. But again, I simply proposed these. It wasn't fully tested out yet. I have yet to test it out. Yeah, that should be it. Yes, in fact. So good luck. Um, take in the advice that Dr. Zhu will be giving you in her sessions. It's very useful, believe me. I wouldn't have been here had it not been for those.
Thank you, Emily. So anyone have any questions really quick? She does have to go off to her studies soon. So we want to make sure if you have any questions outstanding, she gets to them. And I want everyone to, we are very appreciative of the time that she's given us today. So excited to see what else she brings to the table in the future. Okay, no questions? All right. Thank you so much. I know you have to go. Oh, we got one. Hold on. Miss Gloria, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Emily. That was very nice. So I have a question. Were you able to raise any funds during the implementation? And how much were you able to raise? And from where? If we can.
So, as I said, unfortunately, we didn't have time to pilot this study, but the kind of I was planning to discuss this with Children's Council. When it came to funds, we were thinking of so for implementation, we're thinking of, as I mentioned, using the tobacco tax, local tobacco tax, to fund these the formation of these vouchers, which will eventually be used for the activity centers in which these teens can participate. So with that kind of, it's not coming out of the teens' money themselves, it's making it accessible to as many teens as possible in order to actually combat this problem.
I think part of it is also being able to think through a solution, looking to see what is available. Obviously, if you have time to pilot it, we'd like to see the pilot. If you are not able to, I think it's good to think through what you need to what possible barriers are there and challenges, and being able to explain through those pieces. At a later point, if there is time, you can also pilot it after the fact. So I know Amelie actually does work with, is it the European Council?
It's our local children's council.
Children's Council? Okay. So being able to present her findings to them at some point and then seeing if they can move the needle in terms of what can be done is a good way to go about it. The reason for this is, in my past work, I actually did do stuff related to tobacco prevention and at the state level. And we actually looked at kids. So these were also high school students who were able to change zoning ordinances by being able to connect to their local city council leaders and then proposing to them to think through what would be a good solution in terms of zoning laws around locations. This was really about how far away, places that do sell tobacco can be from different neighborhoods, and also things about cigarette and smoking laws within local businesses. So by forming a student coalition, probably in the like 15 to 18-year-old age, they were able to work with their city council to bring that as a piece of local legislation so that it was looked at. And then eventually it became a county, and they're working on now at the state level to be a state law in Georgia, so Atlanta, Georgia. They started out and it's kind of grown. So it really becomes, looking at what's around you and seeing if you can implement it locally. So my suggestion for Ms. Kaleha is really to see if she can also bring this her recommendations back to the local council, and then they can look to see what is available and what can be done.
In fact, we had tried to discuss it, but we did not manage to discuss it at length. So I'm planning to meet up with them again, discuss this at length, see what we can do, see if we can implement it, and we'll see from there. Thank you very
Any
much.
other questions?
Yes, any other questions? Exactly.
Okay, thank you. I know you have to run off. Good luck on your studies and your university exams. I know you're gonna rock them. So
Thank you.
yeah, we'll touch base again soon.
Well, thank you and good luck for everyone else. Rooting for you guys. Bye.
So that was great. It was nice to have her on just for the short amount of time that she was. She does have to go to her studies, and I know it's a different time zone right now in Malta. So we're gonna actually switch over to our current presentation, which is prototyping and pitching. So here today we have Re-Aim Ideas, Hackathon Public Health Design. We're gonna really touch on prototyping, so what it means to take your idea and kind of make it more tangible. And then into product pitching. So how do we talk about what we've made or created in our show and tell moments and get people engaged and excited about what we're doing? Part of pitching is, also being able to explain to people what it is that you're doing and getting them on board so that they're excited, and to get that buy-in and that feedback that we are trying to get, as Emily was saying, and turning that into a solution that actually is available to those around them. So we're going to learn about how communities are able to innovate solutions. So for workshop 4, we're going to look at creating a prototype or pilot. So this is really how you take your ideas and mock them up. Start thinking through what challenges there are, start thinking through barriers, and then, trying to put that really into action. Then you're going to actually review your abstract. So what the piece that you actually are spending some, the 500 words to really discuss and talk about, we really want you to take, look through that piece and think through what, is important and what the gist of that is. Then we're going to compare that to what's known as the judging criteria or create that Amelie touched on earlier. And then we're going to talk about how to actually pitch your ideas in a way that the judges can really understand, what it is that you're trying to convey and what you're trying to do. What, what ideas do you have for people? How is that going to work? Really, we want to see that approach of what you're trying to build together. We're going to do some presentation tips and then next steps and final deadlines. So what is prototyping? Prototyping is the process of creating a preliminary model of a product, a service, or an experience to test and refine ideas. So all of you came up with an idea, right? And we really want to see how you try to put that idea into action. So for some of us, we might draw out a layout of something if we're creating a website or a web page. This gives us an idea of, what content looks like. For others, if we're doing like a service, maybe we're going to try and pilot it in a project. We might take a small group and run a program or create an event and see if it works in the way we want, or create an experience for somebody. And then for those of us who are creating something that actually works, we might build a product mock-up, just a simple one that we can see people interact with and see if it's something that we need to fine tune. So why do we do this? This allows designers to explore concepts, solve problems, and gather feedback before final production. It helps us identify potential issues early on, and it ensures that the final solution meets users' needs. So why is prototyping important? It helps you reduce risk, identify and address potential issues early. So we get to see, in real time, if this is something that's going to work as well as we think, or if there needs to be something that needs to be reworked. It's more cost effective because it saves you time and money by refining your ideas before full scale development. For instance, if I was going to roll out a new phone with different features, I wouldn't actually mass produce this phone without actually having created a prototype or something that someone can actually test out. This is why you actually do some testing with people. You want to see how they interact with it, because you don't want to spend so much time and effort making something and a lot of money on something that's not going to work. So you want to create something that people can kind of play with and see if it's usable, if there needs to be anything that needs to be changed, how people really interact with it. It needs to be user-centered. This really means you need to involve those that you're designing for. So who are you making this product for or the service? You want to see that this is something that meets their needs, because if it doesn't do what you want it to do, and if they don't really respond to it, it's not going to really take off, right? You really want to have something that people respond to, they care about, and they like, and they want to use. It encourages iteration, so it allows for multiple revisions. So, really making sure that whatever it is you can get it to as close as the final piece as you want, because this will actually help you improve your final outcome. So there's types of prototyping I'm going to really talk about. There's role prototyping. This focuses on how different users interact with a product or service in various scenarios. So you really want to be able to see if this is something that people can use in the way that they want to. There's look and feel prototyping. This is when you get to something where you've already decided what something is going to do, but you also want to see if it's something that people like in terms of what it looks like. So this is exploring the visual design and the user experience, focusing on aesthetics and emotional impacts. Think of role prototyping as content, look and feel as the visual and what it looks like. Implementation prototyping. This is really testing if this is going to work in the real world. Feasibility, functionality of a product or service, and focusing how it works. So we're going to go through each, really focus in on role prototyping, which is, is this something that does what you want it to do? So again, really quick, role prototyping simulates user interactions to understand if it's going to work. Look and feel is looking at the visual impact, and an implementation is testing if it's going to really work in the real world the way you want it to. There's ways to prototype. I've listed a few. A lot of times when we look at prototyping, we try to do low fidelity prototyping, and low fidelity actually involves a lot of the different ones that we already have on here. This is using simple materials like paper or cardboard to quickly visualize your ideas. It's when you start to sort of build your mock-up. Think of if you are going to try to build a scale model of something, you might want to draw it out or try to use some construction paper to really do a quick mock-up of what it might be. Wireframing. This is really creating a basic layout of digital interfaces, focusing on structure and navigation. This one's actually often used for those who are doing websites, mobile apps, things that are of a digital piece. And you'll want to actually draw out what it looks like, so you can also label what sort of content and what you want your piece to do, and then also what you want it to look like. Service prototyping, this is looking at delivery processes to improve an experience. So if you were to design a program, for instance, maybe you're looking at how to, create a menu of healthy items for nutrition. Your piece actually involves a team of people that's creating this menu. So you might actually do a service prototype in real time to see if your staff or crew are able to do that menu in a set time for an event. It's the run through piece essentially. Product prototyping. This is really building physical models to test form and function and usability. This is where you might create something to see if it works in the way it's supposed to. And then experience prototyping is very similar to service prototyping in that you're actually looking at overall user experience. Again, so low fidelity, you might be using inexpensive materials to try and test. Paper, you might be actually trying to sketch it out, look at testing interactions and processes and getting that information out there. Wireframing, so this is, you'll see right here on the side, a picture of somebody drawing out what content each screen is going to have for their web layout. So it's a sketch of what your digital interface is going to look like. This really helps people visualize and understand structure and flow of a website or adding in details. And then tools can be done by using paper or using software. So I've also added some software suggestions for you to think about to really help with this piece. Prototyping for services, products, and experiences. Again, you want to simulate the service delivery, testing, and interactions and processes for service prototyping. For product, you want to focus on creating physical models to test. And then for experience, you want to combine those and kind of see what it really is like for people to know what they're doing. Now we're really going to transition from storytelling of we're going to talk about prototype to pitch. So taking that idea that you've now tested and then giving the show and tell moment of your pitch. It's really important to use storytelling because it helps communicate the purpose and value of what you're doing. This also, you might want to take narratives to really emphasize that personal piece of how people might connect to what you're trying to contribute. And then looking to see, who your stakeholders are. From here, we want to actually, once you've kind of figured out how to create your product and thought through some of those challenges, you want to review your abstract that you've written. So you wrote 500 words about what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. Part of that is really thinking through what your problem statement is, highlighting what topic of concern you were thinking about, what problems it addresses. You talked about, the background. Why is this important? What is the context behind it? You did some research to see what matters. And you stated the objective of your proposed solution. So what were you trying to really accomplish? Then you talked about, what is the significance of this and how is it relevant? Then you spend a good amount of time talking about your solution. I actually suggest, that spending the bulk of your time on the solution and the approach in both your abstract and in your pitch is a good way to go about it, because you really want to make sure that people understand not only why the problem is a problem and what that problem is, but taking that concern and giving it your solution. So this whole process is really to teach you about thinking through challenges and coming up with solutions to your concerns. You want to describe your innovative solution to address the problem. How did you go about it? Detail your plan. What was your plan to implement the solution? And then you want to explain how you are intending to look at the impact of your solution and what might be sustained over time. For some of you, we are looking at this in a long term of how do we keep doing whatever it is that you're putting in place. For others, maybe it's a one and done, but we also want to see, what comes of it. Anytime you have something that you are creating, you want it to have a lasting impact. Even for those of us who might read a book or watch a movie, and we might read it one time, but we want that book or movie to really stay with us. So this is, the sustainability piece. What can we remember? What lessons can we take from this? And how can we move forward? Also, quick reminder, if you haven't done your abstract, don't forget to use your citations in APA style. So now we're going to talk about judging criteria in terms of the pitch itself. So I know that Amelie had touched on it as well. It's creative, research-oriented, entrepreneurial, accessible, transformative, and effective. And we'll go through each of these in a little bit as well. So what is creativity? It's been established that a creative idea becomes the cornerstone of innovation. You want to make sure that your solution needs to be, original and relevant for your topic. Really focusing on youth and digital pieces of health. What does it really mean to emphasize those pieces? Really, spend time thinking about the problem, creating that solution, and thinking about the ins and outs of what that means. Is it research oriented? So, we actually will go through what the formation of a research question is. Thinking about taking the literature and reading it. So looking to find data and information and statistics to support what you're doing. Also thinking about what the problem and concerns are. We went through the ideation phase where we actually thought about what our idea was. We also took in our observations, and we used a lot of our interests and our experiences to come up with our research idea. We spent a good amount of time on that. We also talked about finer criteria, which is, feasible. Is it adequate? Is it affordable? Is it manageable? Is it interesting? So thought-provoking answers. Novel, does it validate, supplement, or add to what you're already doing? Is it ethical? And then is it relevant to what we're doing? So these are really highlights of what it really means to create a research question. Is it entrepreneurial? This is the process of discovering new ways of combining resources. So when we are actually thinking about how we're creating a solution, we want to take everything that we already know from our personal lived experiences, as well as from the research that we have done. And we want to combine that with our ideas about based off of what we've already interacted with to come up with a new idea. And combining that, this is what makes your idea new. Being able to combine resources at your level, whether that's local, regional, national, or global, how to solve that problem. So who can you involve in terms of your stakeholders? Who can you learn from? That might be your school. And also, who in your community might be wanting to use your service, product, or solution that you've developed. And what other technology can you bring in? So those are things to think about. Is it accessible? So when we talk about accessibility, we also talk about usability. These go hand in hand. If your product is targeting a certain stakeholder, so for instance, teenagers, you'll want to test that they are able to use your product. Because whoever your target audience is, you want them to really be able to interact with what it is that you're doing. You want to think about what barriers there are for users and go back to your research to find out how best to design your product to be a solution. Will schools need to have certain resources? What times might this be available? do the people that you're designing for even have the resources to utilize it? So, accessibility involves visually being able, is it easy to see? Is it easy to interact with on a motor capacity? Can you hear it? Is it audible? Can you understand how to use it? So cognitive. These are all things that go into accessibility. Is it transformative? So how will your product bring about change? Transformation is a key element that helps enact sustainable changes in society. When do research designs qualify as transformation research? So you're looking at subject framework. What is needed for putting transformation research into practice? So really, redesigning research to integrate, re-equipping researchers and partners for social learning. You might want to think about things like process discovery, process improvement, risk and control, process adoption, and measurement. These are things to really think through in terms of, is this going to work the way I want it to? What other things do I need to put in to make sure that it's going to work in the way I want? Is it effective? How would you rate the effectiveness of your product? Have you solved the problem you set out to? Did you finish before the deadlines? Did you test your product? Questions like this can seem overwhelming, so let's use something more defined and effective when you're presenting. You really want to focus on, short-term communication with non-academic stakeholders, because most of the time you're actually working with people around you. So you want to make sure that when you are explaining what you're doing, that people are able to understand what you're talking about. Research impact is how these stakeholders are directly affected by research. It is long-term, and it demonstrates the researcher's contribution to academia. So we'll really actually go quickly through some of the things from our 2022 cohort. Winning ideas actually involved the following. So COVID on teens and ways to overcome it. This was really thinking through how to come up with solutions for teens to cope with what was happening around them during the 2020 shutdown and COVID. Tackling obesity, a challenge. So really looking at strategies around what that means. Effects of social media usage on mental health. We also had runner-up ideas around public health challenges among youth, stress management, ways to enhance physical activity, and public health through the lens of youth. Honorable mention ideas included looking at sedentary lifestyles and how they improve them, teen physical and mental health, addressing child abuse, ways to address violence and bullying, and improving healthcare access in India. So in terms of impact on COVID, this was really done at grade 9 level at the University High School here locally. It addresses the negative mental health effects of COVID pandemic on teenagers by providing teens with adequate support to focus on their own mental well-being and communicate their needs. This was, about facilitating interactions with their peer groups. So how do we really cope with what was going on as people were interacting with the different pieces around social distancing and, moving from previously mostly in person to online experiences in teaching and how that impacted those around us. At Woodbridge School, grade 10, they really looked at how to tackle obesity from nutrition, exercise, and physical health, and really creating a program that addressed that piece within their school. In terms of mental health at grades 10 and 11, we actually looked, some of the students actually looked at associations between social media applications and a general sense of exhaustion, and came up with some recommendations on sleep habits and limiting digital and social media use that was implemented at that school level. So now we actually want to talk about how do we create a pitch. So first off, what is a pitch? For those of us who don't know, so this is something where when you are trying to convey whether it's something about yourself or about your project, you want to imagine that you walk into an elevator and you're trying to give somebody important information. You have about 30 seconds to get that person's interest from the time you both get on until the time they get off, to convince that person that either you or what you're doing is something that's worth their while. So these elevator pitches typically are 30 to 60 seconds in length. You want to really introduce yourself, explain what you do, identify, what group you're working with or who you're serving, what makes you different specifically, what's exciting about what you're doing, and making this really, cohesive. So if I were to give a pitch on something really quickly, I would really want people to know who I am, why this matters to me. So knowing what your why is, and then also, what do I intend to do to help with this solution, and really see if they can also help me by telling them what's of interest, and seeing if they're interested in working with me as well. So how do we pitch a solution? We really want to identify what your goal is. So you've already done that in your abstract, but you want to be able to describe what you worked on specifically. So as you talked about in your abstract, you looked at a solution. Now you really want to tell us, how you went about that. Focus on the results of what you did. Share credit and critiques, and then really answer questions about what you were doing. So here you might want to identify your goal. So introduce yourself to the judges and build your connection to your project. Share what drew you to the problem and why you want to fix it. Be mindful of your body language. So, you want to be open, smile, make sure that you're excited about what you're doing. Do your research so that you're able to calm your own anxieties. The more you know about what you're doing, the more confident you are going to be about how you're sharing what you're doing. So we look here at the pyramid principle, and this is about, we start out with, sharing who you are, so you're greeting, what school year you're in or where you're at, what are your interests, and also, experiences and how this relates to what you're doing. So why is this project something you care about? And then you want to think about, the problem statement or questions. So this is what I'm working on and why. That's kind of helping you think through your goal. Then you want to describe what you worked on. So what did you study? What did you research, build, make? What did you pilot? Feel free to bring up examples from your past experiences here. Walk the judges through your design thinking process, but be brief about it. You only have about 3 minutes for your initial pitch. So you want to make sure that you cover most of what you need to very quickly. So you'll want to open your pitch with your recommendation. This is actually the most important detail, because you want to tell people why you're doing this and what it is that you're trying to do. You want to provide details to back up your recommendation through supporting arguments. So, 1 or 2 quick sentences about why this is important. You want to support it with data. Provide, a few pieces of data for every argument. Next thing you want to do is you want to be able to focus on your strengths. So what makes your idea or solution unique? Are there any recent news articles surrounding your topic? Is there anything that you can draw from personal experiences or your community? So what are your gaps in public health regarding this problem? Remember the 3 C's. Be very clear, very concise, and very consistent. Credit and critiques. So how have you worked together as a team? Really talk about your teamwork and what brought you to where you are. What were you able to accomplish? Where do you think you could have done more? So here's your framework here. What's going on now? What has changed that requires action? And the pyramid principle style answer. So you'll go from situation, what's happening, complication, what you really need to think about, and resolution, how you're going to get there. And this is known as the Situation Complication Resolution Framework, SCR. Finally, you'll be able to be offered an opportunity to engage with your listeners and your judges. I actually recommend you try to answer a few questions in your pitch very succinctly of things that you think people might ask. What would you do differently if you could restart? How could you project your project evolve beyond competition? So best practice for mastering the art of pitching, you want to speak your audience's language. Try to talk in a way that people are going to understand you really well. Nail that first 90 seconds. You only have 3 minutes total. Get excited about what you're doing. The more excited you are about what you're doing, the more excited other people are going to be for you. Be your own case study. What that really means is thinking about, what's going on around your community. Put yourself in your own shoes and think about how your solution is going to impact you and those around you. Plan ahead for how to handle questions as well. Some tips for this is, have a presentation made with quick points. More visuals within your pitch is also better. We like to see things that are, catch our eye or draw us to things. Amelie actually mentioned, if in your PowerPoint, if you have data or statistics, either bolding it or circling it, highlighting those pieces is effective in making the eye, drawn to that piece of your project. It also helps people kind of really focus in on what information is important. Practice your pitch again and again, and then rewatch these workshops or find similar resources to prepare yourself. There's different types of presentations you might actually want to use. So we talked about ideation, the research piece, design, testing, launching, and maintaining those pieces. If you want to use different types of presentation technology, there's PowerPoint, there's Prezi, there's things like Canva, Keynote, different types of technology involved that you can use. In the product development world, presentations happen during all phases of creation. There's the ideation phase, thinking of what the quick pitch with rough sketches of your product. There's a prototyping phase, which is what we just talked about earlier. And you've done more research and fine-tuned those. So, really be able to talk about those when you're talking to people. When presenting your product at any stage, you are the most important part of the pitch. So, really think about what people are going to focus on. What are you going to respond to? Finally, we have our next steps. For those of you who have submitted your abstract, congratulations. You can start thinking about, what you might do in terms of your pitch, and also, thinking through the implementation piece of putting your project out there. For those who haven't, the final date has been extended to this Friday, February 27th. Finalists will be notified in March. The final pitch is going to be the 13th, and winners will be announced at our awards ceremony on the 27th. For those of you who are able to attend, we encourage in person. If not, we also are happy to host you virtually. We've done both, and we're excited to see everything that you've created. Participation certificates will go out in April, and any other awards and communications will also be going out throughout the month. Happy to answer any quick questions, and for you, I know that was really quick. We can also, if you would like, I can just try and throw a really quick pitch of what the hackathon is for you, for those of you who want to see an example of pitching. And as always, thank you and good luck. Really quick, I'm going to give you a pitch of what Hackathon is, and this will kind of give you an idea of how to do your pitch. All right, so if I were to walk in a room and pitch you Hackathon, I would actually come in, I'd say, hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Jew. I am a health informatics analyst and project manager that works on a lot of the strategic projects at University of Memphis School of Public Health. I'm here today to really talk to you about what Hackathon is. So this is really a competition that's designed to bring all the creative minds around the world, whether you're from high school to through college, to come up with solutions for projects around you. And why is this important? So in public health, we really want to think about the health of our communities. In order to bring the health of our communities to life, we really want to focus on those of you who are living in your communities and what solutions and problems that you come across. So from the day to day, whether that's, being able to cross the street safely or looking at what types of safety equipment is in your building, or maybe you're interested in a specific mental health piece around an application, mobile application. All of you have different ideas about what your health concerns are, and we want to be able to support you in bringing those pieces to life. So this is why we actually created the hackathon. It's to actually, have you guys think through what types of skills you might do. We take you from the very initial project design process through project management. And finally, if those of you continue, we can think through also process improvement pieces. I see that as a big continuum of what innovation is. We want to capture your minds early and to kind of get you thinking about what concerns are around you. Through our hackathon process, we go through, 4 to 5 workshops that really support you in the work that you're doing to look at and take the pulse of your community, come up with a concern of yours, think through that whole process of problem solving so that you actually come up with out-of-box solutions, and then bring those to reality. Then we actually host an awards ceremony that actually brings all of you together, because we want you guys to share your ideas and to continue to develop your young minds around public health strategies, solutions, and connections. And this is really what the hackathon is about. So that's something that I just came up with off the fly on what I would do if I were pitching the hackathon to you. So any questions before we go? All right, quick reminders, get those abstracts in by the end of the week. We'll reach out to you about pitches soon, and good luck on everything you're doing. I know the semester is kicking into high gear, so best of luck to you, and I'll reach out soon. Thanks.